Rock, metal, prog, and everything in between. If you're into rock, you've come to the right place. Welcome to this episode of Talkin Rock with Meltdown. Don't forget to follow the audio-only Talkin Rock podcast on all podcast platforms. And now, it's time for today's conversation. Here's Meltdown.
Doug, good to see you, man. You got your axe and everything, eh?
Hey, Meltdown, what's happening? Yes, I do. I have one of them. This is just a telly I slapped together. But yeah, I have a bunch of guitars in this room.
Now, are you like my friend John 5 that can't go anywhere without like walking around with the guitar?
Pretty much. I remember seeing John walk around with his guitar, and I can understand why, because he would be like hanging out backstage at a festival, and you're there really early, and there's not much to do. You're talking to people, whatever, but it's nice to walk around and kind of just noodle a bit, keep your fingers warmed up. But I do have a guitar with me all the time when I travel, because I want to, in case, obviously for practicing and just, killing time and stuff. But a lot of times I'll get an idea for writing, song ideas. So I want to have a guitar with me so I can explore that if the inclination hits.
Yeah, the spirit moves you. I'll never forget
Yeah.
when Metallica and Guns N' Roses played. I never forget the limo pulled up and Slash got out of his limo and they popped the trunk lid open. He pulled his guitar out. I thought that was pretty wild.
Yeah. Did he have a case?
Yeah, he had a case. Yeah, pulled it right out of the trunk.
That's a lot of times what, people, I remember Paul Gilbert would be one, John 5 we just talked about. And I do it sometimes where if I have a session or a jam or something, I might just stick the guitar in the front seat and not bring a case, because I'm just going to carry it into the jam, and why bring a case?
Yeah.
It's, sometimes it could be dangerous depending on what guitar you have, but for comfort and ease of travel, it's great. You just put the guitar on, you walk with the guitar on your side like this and walk into the jam.
Well, I guess when you're taking the stage in front of 50,000, I thought your guitars would be already set up, but Slash had other ideas that day.
Well, he might have had some other guitars that were ready, and that's just the guitar he had when he was just like me. You bring a guitar because you keep it at your hotel room, and they call you to leave your room, and you bring your guitar with you. Because in my case, I use that third guitar that I bring, the one that I carry. I ship two with the rest of the gear, and then I bring one, and so I bring it to the gig every day in a case or a gig bag. And sometimes I'll be going back to the hotel that night, so I'll bring it back with me. Sometimes I'll have more guitars with me and I don't need it, and I'll just leave it in my room. But in that case, maybe Slash had to check out and they were going to go on the bus to the next gig, or who knows what it is, go to the jet. So he just wanted that guitar with him,
Yeah. So you just talked about noodling around and maybe coming up with some song ideas. So how much of the upcoming new record did you have input in? Obviously a lot, but did you write all the riffs, or did some of the guys come up and help you with some of the riffs, or other band members have ideas?
We all work, brought different parts in and different song ideas, and that's generally what we do with the Dead Daisies. Is we'll bring in ideas, and then in this situation, Marty Fredrickson was producing, and he's like an amazing songwriter in his own. So he had a couple ideas already. Him and John had a couple ideas. I had a few. Devin had a few. David had a few. I kind of helped David finish off a couple of his ideas, and then we played them all for Marty, and Marty kind of goes, well, let's work on this one. I hear where that's going, or let me marinate on that song for overnight or whatever. And he'd come back the next day with a kind of an updated version of somebody's idea. But he makes it super easy. As far as the riffs go, if, say, for example, if John had a song idea, had a great riff, I might say, hey, John, is it cool if I experiment a little bit? Because I could hear it going like this, or maybe just subtle. We would just make subtle changes to improve the riff. And speaking of riffs, the first song that you guys have heard is "Light 'Em Up," and that main riff was written by Stevie D from Buck Cherry.
Oh, no kidding. Okay.
Yep. And Stevie had a whole song, but we just basically pinched the riff and Stevie gave his approval, and then we kind of wrote a little bit new around that riff. And then we, originally, I can't remember his demo, how the riff was played. It might have been played down here. I'm not sure. It might have been played in this position here, but this is how we ended up doing it. And it's got kind of a classic Daisies, but yeah, it's obviously derivative of kind of the way we played it was derivative kind of AC/DC or some other Ozzy type things, like the Angels and stuff like that. But we pinched it, man. It was going to be on probably a Buck Cherry album. We pinched it and made it our own.
No, it's killer. It's definitely got an AC/DC vibe. And when I was listening to it, it's kind of funny because I've been around long enough where I played the Scream on the radio, way back in the day.
Nice.
Just hearing
Very
John's voice and stuff, I don't know, I just flashed back to the Scream and into that Motley record he was on and stuff like that. And I didn't realize it, I guess. I mean, it sounds obvious to say, but John's voice is so like unique and it just kind of cuts through.
Yeah, he's always been an amazing singer. Obviously, he's been doing this a long time, and but his voice is getting better and better. It's really thick and like you say, it cuts through. It's great, man. And he's definitely sounds. This might be his best record yet. I don't know. I know the Scream stuff. I don't know all of the Motley stuff, although that was really cool. It was more of a polished production. This is definitely more of a straight up in your face, like we would call it Australian pub rock kind of thing. It's straight in your face, just kicks you in the teeth. But Corabi sounds amazing.
Now,
yeah.
Obviously, we heard the title track there. Is there, I mean, you're kind of mentioning about the rest of the record and Australian Pub. It's kind of funny you mention it because it does have this AC/DC flair. But is there like any ballady stuff on there? Any real heavy stuff on there?
There is a bunch of stuff that's in the vein of what we just talked about that fits together really well. But then we had a couple of songs that came in. One came in from actually, we wrote one in Muscle Shoals, Alabama, in this studio called Fame Studios that is crazy important studio for early rock and for R&B, and like Wilson Pickett and Aretha Franklin recorded their hits there. Duane Allman worked there with Wilson Pickett. And we were in the studio working on just playing through some blues stuff and kind of noodling around a little bit for a week. And we wrote this tune that turned out to be is really deep, and it's like an album cut. It's not a single. It won't be a single, but it's probably one of the coolest songs on the record because it's like a cornerstone track that it makes the album so much better just because it's on it. So I'm looking forward to you guys hearing that. And then there is we kind of delved into it didn't start off this way, but we delved into a little bit of an almost grungy type of thing on one that's very heavy and very dark in a grunge meets Zeppelin kind of thing, but with the Daisies twist on it, so, but those are songs that add to the experience of the album. And there's one that starts off and it does sound like a ballad, but it turns into kind of an epic, track as well. So there's some good variation on this record. I think people are going to dig it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if anything epic on there, like you just mentioned. So yeah.
Well, that one from Muscle Shoals is definitely epic. It takes you someplace you don't expect, and the more you hear it, the more you dig it. And the lyrics are crazy. It's very heavy, very deep, heavy in terms of the way it makes you feel, but really great. So yeah, we're excited about the whole thing. And in fact, I should say, we're going to be playing a bunch of stuff that has not been released. We're going to be playing it. We're going to be road testing it on this tour.
Okay.
So when people come to hear us, they're going to hear some new stuff as well. That's more than just light them up.
Now, yeah, of course, you're going to be playing in the Machine Shop, one of my favorite places. Kevin and the guys up there are so great. Tommy just texted me. He said he told me to tell you to get your earplugs ready.
I did. I got brand new earplugs. And so, yeah, Tommy, he's a huge part of that whole scene, and he came from there. And we worked together when Glenn was in the band. But I'm really, really super excited about Tommy coming back and playing with Michael Devin, because those two, it's just going to be thunderous. Tommy is definitely, he's a heavy-handed drummer, and it's great. And Michael Devin is also super heavy, and so but they both groove, so it's going to be amazing, those two together. I know they've played together on some other stuff back in the 90s and stuff, but it's been a minute. And so we're really excited about getting in rehearsals and getting busy. And yes, tell Tommy I got some brand new in-ear monitors that fit my ears so good that hopefully, I can keep a little bit of a decibel down on the whole overall stage volume.
Yeah, I can imagine playing in front of him. It's got to be pretty loud for sure. You just mentioned Glenn. Last time I saw you guys, you were playing with Tommy and Glenn. What was it like to play with Glenn? Speaking of a guy that seems to get better as he gets older.
He's legendary. He's got his double-headed, double-fisted, whatever, two-prong kill. He sings and plays bass both amazingly. He's also a very heavy melodic bass player. And it was great for us to have him come in. We kind of changed the songwriting a little bit based more towards what Glenn wanted to do. And like when we were coming up with things, we'd come up with them for Glenn that Glenn would be excited about. Basically, it's always the same, Meltdown. It's the singer's choice. It's like, at the dance at high school, ladies' choice, it's the singer's choice. So if the singer's inspired by what you're playing him or her, then they're going to want to do it. If it's something they're not feeling, then sorry about that plane coming. But yeah, so we were doing some stuff with Glenn, but it felt great to work with him, and we would laugh our asses off too. Especially Tommy really got a kick out of playing with Glenn.
Well, you just mentioned grunge. Of course, you've come up like I have through the 80s and the 90s and stuff. How did grunge affect you, maybe personally and professionally?
Well, it was inspiring to hear it once it kind of, some more options came in. The first one obviously was Nirvana, and I liked it, but I wouldn't say it like influenced me or anything, so to speak. But the thing that was interesting is being in Los Angeles, I was working with a great singer called Cal Swan, and we had a thing together. We had a band called Lion in the 80s, and Lion kind of evolved into a thing called Bad Moon Rising, and we were still doing this kind of European melodic rock. And man, Nirvana came and just wiped everybody up. Man, it was like all record deals dried up. There was nothing happening. But we still had some action in Europe and in Japan, so we kept working a little bit. But a lot of bands that were just based in the US got wiped away by Nirvana. Then later some bands came in, like I love Stone Temple Pilots, because they were from that era, and they had a grunge thing, but they were also had some Zeppelin to them and some Beatles to them. And same thing with Alice in Chains, because they were grunge, but they had some Sabbath to them that was really, really cool. So yeah, it was a good time. It just, like I say, once some of these other bands came out, there was a little bit more to choose from.
And during that time, I saw on your Wikipedia page, I don't like to really go back to Wikipedia too much, but you played a little bit of a track on the Crimson Idol with Wasp. Is that right?
Oh yeah, I this was a long time ago. This was back in the 80s, late 80s. I was doing some other things, and I got somebody called me. I think Blackie Lawless called me. I think he got my number from Frankie Banali, because Frankie and I have been friends forever. And Blackie said to come down, and he wanted to hire me to play on a couple solos, just basically hire me for a day. So I came down and put some stuff down, and I think one of them ended up making it to the album. And he had a bunch of guitar players coming in. I think that's right when maybe him and Chris decided to go separate ways, and so he was looking for people to just finish the album the way he wanted it. And that's probably what pushed Chris off a little bit, was Blackie wanting to do this, and Chris was like, hey, I'm I'm the guitar player of Wasp. I should have a say in it at least, and it probably went south. And then he said, well, I'll just get whoever to come in and play.
Yeah, that was
So
it was after the decline of the Western civilization stuff. You lived through all that stuff, right? Did you know all those guys?
I knew, I mean, I didn't know Blackie, but I knew Chris. He was super nice, always a really great guy, great performer, great, showman. And he definitely had his own thing. But I didn't really know the other guys. And then some of the other, I haven't seen that movie for ages, but I knew a few people in it, I think.
Yeah, had the Megadeth and Ozzy, and I'm trying to remember who else was in it. But even had a Detroit band called Seduce that was in it, which was a 3-piece band. So
Oh yeah. Okay. I remember that band.
then there was that other band I can't recall, and I didn't want to go down this road, but it's like where the guys, I think they were in a hot tub or something. They were going to be like the next big band, and they fizzled out pretty quickly. Whatever they were like some
Well,
lost band.
what year? I don't know what year that came out, but it probably had it probably had a little bit to do with the grunge scene happening because that's when all those bands went away.
Well,
Any
this
band
was
that was
like
playing,
86 or 87, I think, the decline of the Western civilization, because it was right in the middle of like the metal heyday.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Who knows, man? There was too much going on. There were too many bands trying to do the same thing, and so there needed to be a clean out.
Yeah. And is it true that as your page said, once again, like I said, I don't want to go back to that too much, but you did audition for Kiss, is that true?
Yeah, that is true. I was on at the end of I probably checked out a whole bunch of people, and I don't know anybody else, but that was doing it, that was trying out or whatever. But I I got a call from or Eric Carr came and saw me play, and I met him, and he invited me to come down to the studio and meet Paul and Gene, and I played on a couple of tracks in the studio just to see, and then they had me come and play a couple times live with them, and
Mm.
it was I felt guilty because these guys, nobody had seen them without their makeup yet. So I was really felt awkward about looking Gene Simmons in the eye and seeing his face. It's like shouldn't be doing this. But the bottom line is that they wanted to go in a more, I think, what do you like? They wanted a little bit more of a technical guitar player. That was the thing at that time. And Ace is Ace is amazing, and Ace is like a classic. He's one of the legendary. He's like, he was like their Jimmy Page. If they were Led Zeppelin, then Ace was Jimmy Page, and there's nothing wrong with that. But during the early '80s, Van Halen was out, and Randy had come. I think Randy had passed by that time, and man, it was just like everybody wanted a shred guitar player or a little more chops. So that's why that probably happened, and then Ace maybe had some other stuff going on too. But I had a blast playing with them. I just too young. I was just a kid, and these guys were world renowned rock stars, legendary already. And you know, so I can understand that they probably felt like, hey, this guy's he can play, but he's not a guy we can hang out with on the tour bus or something. He's just a kid, so it's important to that's one of the things I learned about is being able to hang out with people, and I'm still learning how to do that because sometimes everybody gets on each other's nerves or whatever. But it's important to be able to hang together if you're going to travel on a tour bus or fly together all the time and just be together all the time. You got to be able to hang out.
Yeah, there's no question about that. I talked to a lot of bands that say the same thing. So were you a Kiss fan growing up? I mean, did they influence you in any way to pick up a guitar or something, or?
Well, I actually, my younger sister had their albums. I didn't have a record player, so my older sister had Jeff Beck. My little sister had Kiss. And I did go in both of their rooms and listen with the headphones. I listened to Jeff Beck Blow by Blow, and it just smoked me. And also Frampton Comes Alive. She had Chicago and Stevie Wonder and some Earl Klugh, some other people like that. And then my little sister had Queen, the one with Fat Bottom Girls and all that stuff. And she had both Kiss live albums. And I'd put the headphones on, and it was like a really unbelievable experience to hear what it would be like at a concert, you know. And there was a song that I wanted to learn. I learned a Peter Frampton song at one point, and I learned a Kiss song at one point. And the Kiss song was Cold Gin.
Hmm.
It was just a great, simple riff, you know.
Yeah. So did you ever get a chance to meet Jeff Beck?
Yeah, several times.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah.
One, yeah, he was super nice. Well, the first time I met him, I went and saw him play with Carmine, um, Carmine Apiece, and Carmine said, Carmine had worked with Jeff and knew Jeff for ages, and Jeff was playing at the Greek Theater in L.A. and Santana was opening, and so I went with Carmine. We went backstage, and it was just star-studded. Everybody, Slash was there, and Billy Gibbons was there, and all these people. And I just met some people, you know, hanging out a little bit. But then after the show, I went home, and I was in bed, and Carmine calls me up and goes, "Hey, Doug, what are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm in bed." He goes, "Come down to the Sunset Marquee. Me and Jeff are hanging in the bar. I want to introduce you to him." And I was like, sheets must have just gone poof up, and I was out, you know. And I met Jeff, and he was nice, you know, but he had gotten done with the show. It's not a matter. That's not really the best time to hang out and meet new people. He's in LA. He's got billions of friends here, you know. So, but I did meet him. And then another time, I was working with Whitesnake. I was working with David on an album, and we were in the thick of it, and I was kind of living up at David's house, and Beck came through, and he was friends with David and invited David to the show. So obviously I went, and again, I met him. He was really nice, but you know, it's like guitar player meeting one of his heroes is like, okay, the conversation goes a little bit, but you have to spend more time together for it to loosen up. But yeah, it was cool. He was really nice, and obviously one of the greatest ever.
Yeah, it's always great to meet some of your heroes, and I've been lucky enough to meet a lot of mine. I met Ronnie James Dio before he passed away. You worked with Dio a little bit, right?
Yeah, I worked with him a lot, actually, off and on. And God bless that kid, man. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Ronnie. He put me out there. He really believed in me, and he showed me the best, to be the best you can be, how to do it, you know, how to just basically really own whatever it is you're doing, and don't let anything stop you. And ultimately, you know, like I say, I wouldn't probably, a lot of people would never have know about me if it wasn't for Ronnie.
I'm 5'6", so he was always one of the guys who I towered over. The one time
Yeah, I forget. It's weird though, when you meet somebody that is one of your heroes, you still look up to them. Like Randy Rhoads was one of my influences and heroes when I was a kid, and I got to meet him before he passed a couple times at the Whiskey in LA. And I don't know how tall he was. He was 5'6" maybe, or something. Maybe I was 5'10" at that time. I don't know, 5'11". But I was looking up every time I met him, every time I saw him. And it was interesting.
Yeah,
Same with Ronnie.
Yeah, now where did you grow up? Did you grow up in the Southern California area?
No, it's in a sense I did, because I moved here when I was 18, and now that I'm in my 60s, I mean, basically I'm still growing up right now, but I grew up on the East Coast. I went to high school on the East Coast outside of Philadelphia, and hence still got the Eagles.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I came here and basically started from scratch my life, and little by little got lucky with a few things, and just, you know, worked off that. But I would say, from what I remember of growing up, it happened in my 30s, and that was here in Los Angeles.
So you mentioned that you auditioned for Kiss. Is there any other bands that you auditioned for that you can talk about that you didn't make the cut, or that was a good experience or anything like that?
Well, there was a couple of things. There was actually in 1990, a bunch of people. My band Lion was kind of fading away. We were on a bad record deal, and we had made a really good record, but I got hit up by a few people to join their band, and I didn't audition, but I got called, to audition. I just wasn't ready to leave, and wasn't ready to give up on Lion, because we were like living together. Our kitchen table was a couple of Marshall cabinets stuck together with a piece of wood on top, and I was just like, if I leave the band, they're going to need to get somebody else, which means I'm going to leave, take all my equipment, which was our furniture. I just wasn't ready to give up on it yet, but some bands called me, and one of them, I did go jam with Ronnie at that time, and he was looking for a replacement for Craig Goldie. He had done a record with Craig Goldie, and then Craig, I don't know what happened, but he was looking for a new guitar player. And I hung out with Ronnie one night. We played. He said, I want you in the band. You got the gig. And then I kind of passed on it because, like I say, I wasn't ready to give up what I was, my bros, and I learned a lesson from that, because in the music business, when you get opportunities, you really got to take them. You really do. I mean, loyalty is good, but at the same time, it's a really crazy business. So you got to take what you can get when you can get it. And then one that I didn't get was I was playing in Lion, and Tommy Aldrich and Rudy Sarzo were looking for a guitar player for something, I think it was called Project Driver. And they had just gotten out of Ozzy, and then them and Sharon Osbourne came to see me play at the Whiskey. We did jam together once, but then they came to see me play at the Whiskey, and I think that, they felt like it was too close to, Randy influence wise. It had just been awkward. It was too soon. So they basically, they went with Tony McAlpine, I think they went with. But it didn't matter to me most times I was asked to do something, I could have done it, or I did it. I was asked to join Whitesnake, I did it. The second time Ronnie asked me to play, I jumped all over it. But I would look at those opportunities that didn't happen as, it's okay. The good thing is that they noticed me, they wanted me enough to play with them, and I have something going on. So maybe I'm not 100% there yet, so I got to work harder, and that's motivational, and that's what is super important in anything. If you're trying to get somewhere with something and you don't get there, you got to use that as motivation, and eventually you will get there.
Yeah, growing up in Western New York, I've only spent a small amount of time in Los Angeles, but back in the day, all the bands kind of knew each other, right? And wasn't it kind of like you were almost kind of auditioning every time you took the stage?
I mean, I not for us. This band Lion, we were super tight, and we were not your typical LA band. We were definitely more influenced by like early Whitesnake and Thin Lizzy and stuff like that. We had a big influence because of our singer. He was British, and so he brought a lot of that early Whitesnake stuff that he was into, and people hadn't really heard that. So that was part of our sound, and we just didn't go out much. If we did go out, we'd go out as a band. But that Dio thing happened because Grover Jackson from Jackson Guitars said, hey, Ronnie's looking for a guitar player. I think it'd be a great opportunity for you. And as I said, at that time, the band was super tight, and I just wasn't ready to cut out yet. I actually, during that time, he won't remember it, but Dave Mustaine called me I heard that he wanted me to come have a jam or whatever. And he called me and he goes, is this Doug Aldrich? And I said, yeah. And then he hung up. So I don't know what was going on with them or whatever, but he called me, and then I knew he was going to call, and then he hung up on me. So.
And he never called back?
No. And I just chucked it up to, well, I don't know what happened here, but obviously he doesn't want me to come now. So, okay, cool. But it was funny, and I know Dave, he's a really kind-hearted man. He's a great, he's got a great story behind his success. And but I know he was probably, he doesn't remember that. We never talked about it actually. So it'll probably come out and he'll go, what's he talking about? But
There's probably a few conversations Dave has had in his life he doesn't remember.
as all of us have.
Back in the day, for sure. Well, Machine Shop, June 11th, of course, the new record drops in September. Light 'em up. And Doug from the Dead Daisies, thank you so much for your time, and safe travels, and take care of our friend from Detroit there, Tommy, on the road.
Yeah, Tommy's going to take care of us too. He's going to have to take care of us too, because he's a very level-headed cat, and Tommy's really inspiring because he's always taken really good care of himself. And I remember some of the best shape that I was in on the road was hanging out with Tommy. And then Tommy and I would do, and I'm looking forward to this. It wouldn't happen often because we're both trying to, you try to be cool about money on the road and stuff. But periodically, Tommy and I would like to enjoy a nice, fresh, right off the grill steak. And so I'm looking forward to getting out with Tommy and having some nice steaks, playing some rock and roll. It's going to be awesome.
And hibachi, that's my go-to steak. Are you a hibachi guy?
Oh yeah, love it.
Yeah, it's one of my.
I mean, you're talking about like Benihana, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong. That's like you cannot go wrong with that dinner. It's just steak and shrimp, man. That's the one.
I'm a steak and chicken guy, but yeah, I feel you there.
Well, yeah, steak and chicken. You don't eat seafood?
No, I do, but I just always get the steak and chicken when I go there. That's just my favorite. And besides, they throw the shrimp in your mouth all the time.
Yeah, I like the shrimp. It's got that Asian flavor to it with the sauce. But also remember that the fried rice has chicken in it, so you got that already.
Yeah, I suppose.
You're trying to hit as many food groups as you can with the Benihana.
Next time I go to a Benihana type place, I'm going to remember this conversation.
All right, man. Well, hopefully we'll hit it together one day.